Well, here I am at the Reubens, and this is Sam Viviano, who's the art director for Mad Magazine. And 30 years ago, Sam and I were both about 21, 23, and we were walking the streets of New York as new illustrators, bumping into each other all the time, going to all the same clients, and those were the good old days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember well. I remember comparing artwork as we passed in the hallways.
We had all the same clients and much the same experience.
Well, I think there were a lot of avenues for getting started in the business in those years, in the mid to late 70s. And those of us who all worked within a certain range of humorous illustration found a lot of work at places like Scholastic. In my case, Mad Magazine imitators, and unfortunately for me, luckily, eventually Mad.
Well, people call me a Mad Magazine imitator too.
Yeah, I think it was impossible. Sure. Thank you. It was impossible to overcome not simply our influences, but the appearance of our influences. In other words, I remember chafing if someone would say, "Oh, your work looks like Mort Drucker's," because I didn't want anyone ever to think I copied Mort Drucker's work. But because I grew up in the era of Mad Magazine and was influenced by it, there was certainly a vocabulary there that was epitomized by people like Mort Drucker or Jack Davis that I at least was conversant in, even if I wasn't directly copying from them. My work was in a ballpark that they shared. I was sort of like the bench warmer to their all-star home run hitters.
Well, they were around as we were growing up, and
that's right.
They were our influences. I had big stacks of Mad magazines, and I would go over every detail.
Well, I certainly grew up with Mad, and I love Mad. I remember the very first issue of Mad I saw in Linda Winnock's basement in Detroit when I was about 5. But I actually kind of segued into comic books pretty early, and for many, many years, that's what I thought I wanted to do, was comic books. And my big heroes were the comic book artists like Carmine Infantino and Joe Kubert. But I think that sometimes, no matter what you think you want to do, your own sensibility pushes you into the direction that you're meant to go in. I've been telling a story to people about meeting Dick Giordano in 1969 and showing him all of my Batman and Flash drawings, and after he looked through them for a few minutes, he looked at me and said, "You don't want to draw superheroes, you want to draw funny." And I think he was right, that even my superhero drawings looked funny because that's what my own sensibility was.
You know, I miss those days when it was before fax machines and before Federal Express, and to be an illustrator you had to live in Manhattan, and
yep.
Art directors were willing to look at portfolios then,
yep.
which they stopped being interested in doing, and you could walk around to different places and just talk to the art directors and get feedback and get jobs, and it was just an entirely different world. And there was that wonderful camaraderie of all the other artists in the same place, driving you to achieve, and available to talk, and you just got to know everybody. None of that exists now.
Well, you know, there's a huge network now on Facebook and over the internet, which has its own value, but I too talk often with great fondness of those early years, and you've actually talked about two different aspects of it. One is that you had a lot of face-to-face contact with your clients or your hoped-for clients, and for me, one of my favorite parts of the job wasn't the drawing of the job, it was the delivery of the job, and particularly if I'd done a good job, showing it to the art director and seeing an expression of pleasure. Of course, there are occasions when there's expression of disappointment, but I won't talk about those. But the other aspect about those days, I'm thinking about the early 80s, was the fact that, as you said, we all kind of bumped into each other and hung out with each other. There was a time where there seemed to be at least 2 or 3 parties every weekend that were cartoonist parties, that were illustrator parties, and it wasn't necessarily that you were ever comparing notes or sharing industry secrets. It was just almost like a form of osmosis, that by being together, the electricity that permeated the crowd kind of seeped into your own skin and helped inform you when you work.
Also, being so close to all those other great artists really motivates you to be better yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. Not that it was exactly a contest, but you did feel that just to be able to hobnob with them, I better work pretty hard to be as good as I possibly can be.
Well, it was nice hobnobbing with you 35 years ago, Sam.
Likewise, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.